Sounds like a plan.
Yeah. All right, and we are live. Hey man, how you doing, Linda?
Doing good today, Kino. Can't complain, man.
Man, that's cool. That's cool. How business been?
Business has been steady. I've seen that it's been up and down for, a lot of people in our profession these days. So it's good to know that I'm still pulling some clients on across the finish line.
Okay. So what made you wanted to go from residential to commercial? Because you started with residential, correct?
That's correct. So I've spent 6 years as an agent. It's been 6 years, and then the last two I've been dealing with commercial transactions. And the biggest difference that lured me over to commercial is the type of client that we're dealing with. Commercial transactions are just more um, numbers driven rather than emotionally driven. So I enjoyed, being and going through that process a little bit more than being on the residential side. So yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's cool. And you so far enjoyed the jump from one to the next.
Yeah, the jump was tough. It's just a different world, and I don't mean it as far as logistics. I mean like the people. The commercial pool is small, and it's really hard noticing that um, on the outside looking in the beginning. Um, but after a few transactions are done, you start to realize who is really making these deals happen, like who's pushing these deals across the
Okay.
finish line.
Okay, that's cool. Perfect. Um, so what is basically explain to folks what is it that determines whether something is residential or whether it's commercial? Because you've done both. So what technically make you a transaction? Everybody would know the big deals like a skyscraper, a big
Mhm.
apartment complex, and so forth. But in the basic sense of it, what makes a transaction commercial compared to residential?
It's a good question. So in the commercial space, you I'm in the retail, so I do landlord and tenant rep in the retail space. So one of the main differences there is we're gonna have a lease in place. Of course, on the residential side, it's buying and selling of the residential from the owner and the new seller. So that's one of the main things. Um, Commercial properties are income producing properties. So a lot of people don't think about it that way, but that's the main difference there. They're income producing properties. So we're talking about lease structures, tenant quality, the business use, and the value being tied more into income than emotion.
Gotcha, gotcha. Okay. So on the residential side, we know basically when somebody wants to buy a house, the questions we have, but
Mhm,
one of the things we always want to know is how you're going to pay for this. Obviously, if you have cash,
mhm.
we'll ask for a bank statement, but on the flip side, we'll ask for a pre-approval letter to know how much you're pre-approved for. Someone wants to start a new business, let's say a restaurant want to
Mhm.
rent a space. What are some of the things that they will need to have so a landlord be like, okay, this might have a chance that way to be able to get a space leased out.
Okay, so I always start with this, but I don't want it to scare people away, but it's usually a larger down payment, of course. So you're gonna have a larger down payment on moving into the commercial space. DSCR, it's gonna be lender focused. So the lender is gonna focus based on your income and your strength and your borrowing strength. Um, if you're a business, you have to tie that into your tenant stability and whether the property and the use of the property is going to be how it's going to perform. So to sum it up, you're going to have a larger down payment, and we want to know how your business is performing, how stable is your business, so that we know that you're able to afford the lease that you're coming into.
Okay. And generally speaking, if there's such a thing, how long would landlords normally, probably the longer the better, but what is the shortest terms usually landlords look for when you're leasing for a business, or it depends on the type of business?
That's a great question. So in the beginning, I used to think that landlords wanted longer terms, but it really just depends on the space and the business. We may offer a shorter term to get a feel for a new business that's starting up, because every business is not going to be have existing clients and things of that sort. So I've seen the leases go from as small as 3 years, 2 years, which is good for the landlord if he's taking a chance on a client that doesn't have any prior performance in the market.
Okay.
And if we have a good, what we like to call big box clients, which is like some of your bigger franchises, they are able to, secure longer leases with, more stable uh, rents, so that they're able to lock in, a good price for a long time.
Okay.
As your
How is the
business grows, I'm sorry, I
Go
didn't mean to
ahead.
cut you
No, go
off.
ahead, go ahead.
As your business grows, you're going to be able to, the space is going to grow. So the space, you are just as important to the shopping center or the commercial space as anyone. Remember, the commercial properties are income driven. So that's another thing, businesses, should also take into account when they're negotiating, how you're the value. So you're valuable.
Okay. It's good. Does is it pretty much the same with the residential? It can still be a negotiation between the tenant and the and the landlord, or there's a little bit more there where the landlord have a lot more say than possibly say the tenant might.
Everything's negotiable. Yeah. So
Okay.
that remains the same. We do have fair market value leases and rents, but it's all negotiable. And that's where, your good steward comes in, your good commercial agent or your residential agent comes in when they're negotiating for you on the other side. A lot of clients don't see that part, and that's why I feel we aren't valued as much in certain transactions and situations. But on the commercial side, I do feel like we are able to, express and show how much we're valued in the transaction to our respective client when it comes from residential to commercial.
Okay, cool. Somebody, well, actually, I'm saying somebody, but my wife, Betsy, she always joined this, which is pretty cool. And the question is, does that mean that commercial deals, lease versus purchases, mostly lease versus purchases? Like most of the
Um,
deals you do, would it be leases compared to purchases? Um,
it's
what
this
what is
it's
what is the mix there?
in retail, it's definitely going to be a little bit more leases on the high end, because we're representing the landlord when he buys the building and when he is looking for tenants, or we represent the tenant, which is the business, when they're looking for a space. So we have both sides. So it's always going to be a little bit more of the leasing when it comes to the commercial. But I do have a few sales. Depending on your client's portfolio. That's another key difference I feel from commercial to residential. In residential, we build um, relationships, right? And we try to, stay in contact with our, past clients. But if we're being honest, your client probably is going to buy and sell a house once or twice in their lifetime, So with commercial, you uh, an investor or a company will have a portfolio of buildings or retail centers that they will sell and buy and sell and buy and sell and buy. So once you
Right.
build your book of business, you kind of have a steady, you know, income and a steady way to, um, navigate in the, you know, retail in the commercial space.
Okay. With the little that I know about commercial real estate, one of the things that is big when it comes to commercial real estate is zoning.
Hmm.
Because obviously, if you're gonna put a restaurant, you gotta be zoned, zone for different things. If how easy it is usually if you're trying to do something and you want to have zoning change, is that a pretty simple process or a pretty complicated process? If somebody wants to change a building to do something else than what is currently zoned for.
Zoning depends on a lot of things because it does take approval to change zone. Um, but it just depends on the future of the city, the outlook of the city, what the city kind of wants, what they're looking for, where they're headed, where their plans are for certain space and neighborhoods. And that's where the political side I feel comes into play. Knowing the plans, knowing kind of where the city is headed, you're able to, position your client and position deals and change zoning to meet, the specifications of the what the city wants. I'm not saying that it can get changed if they don't have plans in place for something that you're doing, but it is a process and it is something that needs to happen, that needs to be, made aware because the deal definitely can fall apart if the zoning is not right. The space may look perfect, but if the zoning or use approval does not fit, the deal is gonna fall apart. Did I lose you? I can hear you. I can't hear you, or your camera is also not if you're still live. Ah, you're back.
Okay, yeah, look like we're back. Okay, cool. Sorry.
Okay. Happy. If you can hear me, you froze.
You see a
Uh,
building, and yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. You just came
Can you
back
hear me?
live. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I think yeah, the Wi-Fi is horrible where I'm at. I think that's me. But talking about build out, like sometimes you see a restaurant in a space, the next time the restaurant closed down and something in there and it's totally different. Who usually pays for all that build out, or is that an agreement between the tenant and the landlord, generally speaking?
Everything's negotiable. It's usually some type of common ground that the landlord and the tenant finds to try to make it work. Um, because again, with commercial, I'm gonna repeat it. I sound like a robot, but everything is income driven. So that owner of the landlord wants to make the deal work, especially if he has a good use, like restaurants, daycares, medical users, salons. They face like major costs for like plumbing, restaurants, grease traps, electrical, dinner hoods, uh, daycares with the fire suppression. I have a ton of daycare clients where the fire suppression system kills the deal because that's a huge expense. And it's just finding common ground and trying to navigate that way. The owner usually is going to get it back in rent over a time of the lease. That's when you see those long leases,
Okay.
so that he's able to recoup, and he knows what year he's going to start recouping some of the build out back.
Okay, okay, got you. Um, what is so you have a client and they're looking to rent a space. What are some of the things that you, as the agent, let's say you're working for the tenant, not the landlord, and on that side, what are some things that you will put into the contract to try and help your client to get the best deal possible? Some protections, for example, like on the commercial side, we have inspection contingencies and different things like that. What are some things like
On a
that that
residential.
a good agent like yourself will make sure that you do to protect your client, your tenants?
Making sure that we are outlining the responsibilities of the tenant and the landlord. So in commercial, we always start with a LOI, which is just a back and forth conversation on how we're going to structure the deal. And then once we agree to that, then we can put together the lease, which lays out the landlord's responsibilities, and then it lays out the tenant's responsibilities. So some of the things that I like to um, do for my client is just to make sure that they are moving into a space where they can comfortably afford the rent. And if you're not overwhelmed with your lease, then you're able to grow into your space a lot better. Those things include tenant improvement, but you want to make sure that you're balancing the tenant improvement so that it doesn't affect your bottom line, which is your lease. The more tenant improvement you ask for, a lot of businesses think that it's free, which is just money allocated for you to use to build the space out. That's what tenant improvement is. But the landlord is going to structure that deal in some way to try to get it back. So making sure that you understand that and that it is balanced and you feel like it's fair. We do a lot of rent abatement. Sometimes the landlord doesn't have a lot of capital to build out your space. So he'll just give you free rent in the amount of what you need to build out your space. So if you're a business and you have capital or you have a loan, then you're able to feed into that and get some free rent and get it that way. So it's many avenues, many things that we negotiate to make sure that, both parties are happy with the deal.
Okay. Explain these three things for me.
Mhm.
Gross lease, net lease, and triple net lease. What give me the basic structure of what each one of those mean.
All right. So the triple net lease is the one that's most commonly misunderstood. The triple net lease charges for common area maintenance, which is your grass cutting, your cleanup, your maintenance, your trash, the signs cleaning, the lights, the parking lot, all of those things that the owner pays for will be split between the tenants that represent the space. You will pay your insurance as well as the owner's insurance. You will pay the taxes for the building, and you will pay for the utilities in the building. That is all separate from your base rent that's negotiated. So if your base rent is negotiated, you have that plus your other charges, which means that it's a full triple net lease. You're basically paying for everything in the commercial for the commercial building. And that's very different from residential because when you lease from residential or you rent an apartment or you rent a house in a residential, you're only paying for your rent and what you use, right? Your utilities. So it's kind of hard,
Right.
navigating that sometimes. Your gross net lease is the same. It's just you're not paying for everything. So it's a mixture. You might pay for your base rent and then just maintenance, but no taxes and insurance. So you may pay for, you know, something that doesn't include everything. So triple net, you're paying for everything. Gross net, you're paying for your base rent and some things. And then your standard lease, you're just paying for your base rent. It'll be like being compared to a regular residential,
Okay.
which is
So
uncommon even in Memphis, you're gonna
Yeah.
have your triple net. That's why they bought the building. That's why commercial investors and business owners, that's one of the perks of having a commercial space.
Okay. Is there ever leases structured where, for example, a restaurant will pay a base lease, but you also pay part of your profit as well towards the landlord? The stuff like that happen as well. If are those possibilities as well?
Yeah, you don't see that as much here in Memphis, but I'll give you a good example. It's called percentage uh lease. So that means that the landlord will get a percentage of your profits. And how they like to position it is, if you do well, we do well. When you do bad, then you have a bad month, then we don't get as much. That's not as common here, but a good example of that would be in the Midtown area, like where Porch and Parlor is. It
Mm-hmm.
used to be, or where the new gaming night, the old Bari. All those spaces are owned by the same guy, and it's percentage rent. That space has been empty for 3 years. It takes a very specific business and franchise that is set to grow and do well to be on a percentage lease.
Okay. So here, so not a very common thing here locally.
You don't see it as much, I've only ran into it that one time when I was trying to lease that space out, and it didn't work because it scares a lot of new business owners, right? If you're a new business owner and even if you're projected and you have everything perfect, starting with a percentage lease just doesn't seem like it wouldn't seem like a good idea. But it works for some people and it works for them. I'm not gonna say it's a bad thing, you know.
Okay. Okay, that's cool. And anything else that you would like to mention to anyone who might hear this that is thinking of leasing some commercial space, or that they should know? Like, we kind of started up front with in terms of, pre-approvals and stuff like that. What are some other things that you can impart to someone that might be interested in doing some kind of lease commercially?
I would say a cheaper space. Oh, excuse me, I'm so sorry. A cheaper space is not always a better deal. A lot of people look for the cheapest space they can find. But when you're trying to evaluate where you want to move your business and grow your business, if you are not thinking about where your business can grow, and you're not thinking about things like the traffic count, how your business can be seen, um, and you're not incorporating
Mhm.
that into the equation, that can cost you, no matter how cheap your rent is, if you're not growing as a business. Um, Low rent can become expensive if a tenant has to pay like for heavy improvement costs or if the location just hurts revenue. So revenue is always important to a business. So no, we don't want you to go into a space where you're overspending, but taking the time to find that right space for your business it's truly important. It can make or break, your business.
Okay, man. Well, listen. Thank you. I really appreciate it. This was a short conversation, but I just wanted to get anybody who's watching this might be able to get a few insight into what it looks like in the commercial world. I know the residential side, the commercial side. I don't know a whole lot, so it just give folks how they can get in touch with you. Phone numbers, in social media, any which ways, websites.
I'm Lyndon Baston. Again, I'm with Myers Commercial Real Estate. Phone number is 901-584-9012. I do deal mostly in retail, landlord and tenant rep, but any type of commercial transaction, you have any questions, I'll definitely be glad to help. You can find me on Instagram, Lyndon CRE. And yeah, it's been a pleasure, man. I appreciate you having me.
All right, man. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it, man. Have yourself a wonderful weekend.
You too.
All right, man. Bye. Hey, so yeah, just wanted to bring that to anyone who might be interested. That's this other side of the real estate. That's one side that I don't deal with, but However, anytime I have a commercial client, which I have had some before, Lyndon always helps me out and does a wonderful job helping me. So if you got any questions, give me a call and I'll try and get answers. Or if not, call Lyndon directly or call me and I'll get you his information. Thank you guys very much. And see you next Friday for Fact Friday. Bye-bye.